All right, let's talk about something that has sparked a huge debate across Canada. A homeowner in Lindsay, Ontario has been charged with aggravated assault and assault with a weapon after allegedly injuring an intruder. This incident has sparked a fierce national debate. Even Ontario Premier Doug Ford has weighed in.
So this criminal that's wanted by the police breaks into this guy's house, this guy gives him a beating, and this guy gets charged. And the other guy gets charged, but something is broken. I know if someone breaks into my house or someone else's, you're going to fight for your life. This guy has a weapon. You're going to use any force you possibly can to protect your family. I'm telling you, I know everyone would. I'd be scared to break into Kevon's house. Look at this, he's like a linebacker. He beat the living crap out of the guy, as he should. Because enough's enough here. The violence and breaking into people's homes, putting guns to their heads, and guess what? Some bleeding heart judge, little Johnny, he didn't have a good upbringing, so we're going to let him out on bail 5 more times because he's on his 5th, being let out on bail 5 times, just to go do the same thing the next day. I'll tell you one thing, I get more calls than anyone in the country. People are done with this. They're absolutely done. They're finished. You should be able to protect your family. When someone's going in there to harm your family and your kids, you should use all resources you possibly can to protect your family. And maybe these criminals will think twice about breaking into someone's home.
He said something is broken. So let's explore why the law allowed this homeowner to be charged and how Canada's legal framework for self-defense really works. So on August 18th, a 44-year-old awoke to discover a stranger inside his home. A violent confrontation left the intruder critically injured. Police have now charged the homeowner with aggravated assault and assault with a weapon. According to reports, the intruder sustained serious life-threatening injuries and was transported to Ross Memorial Hospital before being airlifted to Toronto Hospital. The 41-year-old intruder is facing multiple charges himself, including break and enter, possession of a weapon for a dangerous purpose, mischief under $5,000, and failure to comply with probation. So, the possession of a weapon for a dangerous purpose charge there suggests to me that the intruder was armed during this confrontation. We also know from the failure to comply with probation charge that this is not the home intruder's first offense. Look, it is obvious to me when you view the details that the case against the homeowner will be dismissed as self-defense. It's obvious to me. You can let me know in the comments if I'm missing something here, but I want to indulge this case a little further. Obviously, the discussion about this case has been raging on social media. This user says, in Canada, you do not have the right to defend yourself, and there is no castle doctrine. We'll get back to castle doctrine a little later. This other user says, self-defense only extends to a proportional response. Once the Crown reviews this, charges will be dropped almost guaranteed, which is exactly what I said earlier. So there are people now demanding reform. Some people are saying we need a simple castle doctrine written into law. For those of you who don't know what the castle doctrine is, it is a legal principle mostly found in the United States that says a person has the right to use force, including deadly force, to defend themselves against an intruder in their own home. Essentially, if an intruder breaks into your home and you then harm them in some way, in the US, the law often presumes the act was justified. It's actually wild. The castle doctrine has some interesting features. Number one, there is no duty to retreat. So if someone unlawfully enters your dwelling, you don't have to try to run away before defending yourself. Number two, there is a presumption of threat. In many United States, if an intruder is in your home, the law automatically assumes you're in danger. So your use of force is presumed reasonable. Here's the third feature of the castle doctrine. You also get immunity from prosecution or lawsuits. So in some states, homeowners are immune from both criminal charges and civil lawsuits if they injure or kill an intruder. Look, Canadian criminal law, rooted in sections 34 and 35 of the Criminal Code, allows force in self-defense, but only if reasonable and proportionate. In section 34, it says force may be used if a person reasonably believes they or someone else is under threat, and the force used is reasonable in the circumstances. And in section 35, similar standards apply when protecting property, but serious bodily harm or lethal force solely to defend property is not permitted. And there are two key precedents I want to point to here. The first one is R.V. Lavallee, a case from 1990. This was a landmark Supreme Court case where a woman shot her abusive partner in the back of the head as he walked away during a violent confrontation. The court ruled her actions could still count as self-defense because what matters is not just the objective threat in that split second, but also her reasonable belief, shaped by years of abuse, that her life was in imminent danger. The Supreme Court emphasized that the subjective and objective realities of the defender, such as feeling trapped, must be considered when assessing reasonableness. That ruling shaped modern self-defense laws. So how is that relevant here? It shows Canadian courts don't just look at whether the intruder was facing the homeowner at the time of the injury, they also weigh the homeowner's perceptions and fear in that moment. If the Lindsay homeowner reasonably believed his life was at risk, even if the intruder was no longer attacking, the courts must consider that fear. Here's another key precedent. I want to talk about R.V. Jobidon. This was a case from 1991. In this case, two men agreed to a fistfight. One of them struck repeated blows after the other one was incapacitated. The other man then died. The Supreme Court ruled that consent to a fight doesn't justify causing serious bodily harm, and that once the threat has ended, continuing to use force is unlawful. Essentially, even consensual violence cannot serve as a defense to causing serious bodily harm. This highlights the limitations on defensive excess. So why is that relevant here? Even in a home invasion, if the intruder is down or fleeing, continuing to strike can cross the line from reasonable defense to excessive force, just like in R.V. Jobidon. That's why charges can be laid. The law requires force to stop once the threat stops. People are calling for reforms now, but as recently as 2012, there actually was some legislative amendments. Under Bill C-26 from 2012, Canada unified self-defense and defense of property into one framework. And this helped to clarify the evaluation factors like imminence, the threat nature, and proportionality. But crucially, this amendment did not introduce a castle doctrine or blanket immunity. Now, interestingly, Alberta diverged from federal norms in 2019 after the Watson versus Maurice case. Let me tell you about the Watson versus Maurice case. A rural Alberta farmer, Eddie Maurice, fired shots at thieves he believed were stealing from his property. One of the trespassers, Ryan Watson, was injured. Watson later sued Maurice in civil court for damages over the injury. I know, the audacity, right? A thief suing the property owner is crazy. There's nothing you won't see in this life. It's very wild. Anyways, the public outrage was huge. Many Albertans felt it was wrong that a criminal trespasser could turn around and sue the very person defending their home and family. So as a result, in 2020, the Alberta government introduced and passed the Occupiers Liability Amendment Act. This law gives civil immunity to property owners if a trespasser is injured while committing or attempting to commit a crime on their land. In plain terms, if you're breaking into someone's place in Alberta and you get hurt, you generally can't sue the homeowner. Again, why is this relevant? In Ontario and everywhere else outside Alberta, that protection does not exist. Even if charges against this Lindsay homeowner were dropped criminally, in theory, the intruder or their family could try to sue for injuries in civil court. But Alberta's law shows one way governments have tried to fix what Premier Ford calls a broken system by shielding homeowners from civil lawsuits. But note, Alberta's changes only cover civil liability. They do not give homeowners blanket immunity from criminal charges if their use of force is deemed excessive under the criminal code. Look, all this outrage, but there is a fundamental truth everyone seems to be missing. Charges don't equal guilt. Canada's justice system emphasizes due process. Every defense must meet objective and subjective standards, including reasonableness. So that's that. But I wanted to address something else with you guys. Doug Ford says something is broken. So is the law actually broken, or is it simply cautious? The truth is, Canada's self-defense laws are designed to balance your right to protect yourself with the society's interest in preventing vigilante justice. But that balance creates difficult scenarios. Consider these scenarios. In scenario 1, a stranger breaks into your home with a knife. You strike first, you injure him badly, and call 911. Most Canadians would call this justified. And under Section 34, it likely is. Here's scenario 2. The intruder runs towards the door. You chase him down, you hit him with a bat, and he suffers permanent injury. Here, the immediate threat is gone. The law may no longer see your actions as defensive, and that's why charges can follow. Third scenario I want to present to you. A thief breaks into your garage to steal your bike. You confront him and knock him unconscious. Under Canadian law, protecting property alone is not enough to justify serious bodily harm. Unlike in parts of the US, the castle doctrine does not apply here. Last scenario I want to share with you. A small, unarmed trespasser steps inside your home, but you believe, perhaps wrongly, that he is armed. You lash out with overwhelming force. Courts must then decide if your belief was reasonable. This is where cases like R.V. Lavallee guide the law in recognizing human fear while still requiring proportionality. So is the law broken? I'm going to say not exactly, right? It may be frustrating, but Canada's system errs on the side of restraint. Again, charges don't mean convictions. They mean the courts will scrutinize whether your actions were truly reasonable in the moment. The bigger issue is how hard it is to judge reasonableness in the heat of the moment. Think about it. Courts don't have the luxury of stepping into the homeowner's shoes in that instant. They have to weigh the facts after the fact. They have to look at medical reports, witness statements, and even split-second timing. Was the intruder armed? Was the homeowner still under threat when the force was used? Did the danger end before the most serious injury occurred? These are incredibly difficult questions. One person's fight for your life moment can look, in hindsight, like retaliation, right? So why does this scrutiny matter? Unlike the United States with the castle doctrine or stand your ground laws, Canada doesn't grant blanket immunity just because someone entered your home. And there's a reason for that. Blanket immunity can excuse violence that was clearly unnecessary. Imagine a teenager sneaks into a backyard shed to steal beer and ends up dead. Alternatively, imagine a confused neighbor with dementia wanders into the wrong house and is severely injured. Under the castle doctrine, homeowners might be automatically shielded in these cases. Whereas in Canada, courts must ask whether the force was proportionate to prevent tragedies like this from happening. That's why charges are sometimes laid, even if it feels unfair. It is not about punishing victims of crimes. It is about ensuring society doesn't condone force that goes far beyond the threat. It is messy, it is controversial, but it reflects a principle that Canada has stuck to. The right to defend yourself must always be balanced by responsibility. So when Doug Ford says something is broken, he is speaking to a public sense of injustice. But the law isn't broken, I'd say. I think it is cautious. And in a world where split-second fear collides with the power to harm or even kill, that caution might be the only thing keeping us from replacing one tragedy with another. If it makes you feel any better, I think this case is probably going to get dismissed as self-defense, especially because it seems like the intruder was armed. Also, if there was a struggle, as it appears there was, that establishes an imminent threat, which I believe frees the homeowner from liability. The fact that the intruder is a repeat offender out on probation suggests the homeowner was right to take the threat seriously. And this is exactly how the process is supposed to work. You go through the facts and establish guilt or no guilt. In this case, I think no guilt, right? But I'm not a lawyer or a judge. I'm just giving you my opinion here, right? But you tell me, where should Canada draw the line? Do you think Canada needs its own version of the castle doctrine? Should Ontario follow Alberta's lead and give homeowners more protection? Or would that go too far? Let me know your thoughts in the comments and subscribe if you're new to the channel. I'll see you next time. Take care, you guys.